A husband sits at his own dinner table and realizes the person he trusts most is tampering with his food. His wife moves like she's done it before, calm, casual, almost careless, because she believes he won't notice and won't question. This isn't a marriage argument or a bad night. This is betrayal with intent inside the safest place a man is supposed to have. And when the threat comes from the person sharing the home, it stops being about love and starts being about survival. Trust is earned in drops and lost in buckets. And when someone shows you who they are, believe them. So in a moment like this, what's the move? Stay quiet and pretend nothing happened, or act immediately and protect yourself before the truth becomes irreversible. Before we dive into today's story, let us know where you're tuning in from. It's always amazing to see where our stories travel. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next twist in this journey, because what starts as a normal dinner can turn into something you never forget. Now, let's listen to him from the heart. I've always believed in the architecture of control. Maybe it's the only way you survive in this business, never losing sight of the smallest detail, never leaving a single line item unchecked. Every morning as sunlight poured through the 28th floor windows of Republic Plaza and spilled across my desk, I reminded myself how far I'd come. From cleaning rooms in a rundown Santa Fe inn to closing deals in glass towers above Denver, my life had become a case study in hard-won success. I built this 5 boutique hotels, each one my name on the paperwork, every brick and lamp and line of the P&L traced back to a choice I made. My name is Knox Merrick, and if there's one thing I know, it's how to protect what I've built. At least that's what I thought. That Tuesday, we were wrapping up final negotiations to expand the Lodo flagship, adding a spa and a 300-seat conference wing. Graham, my COO, and the rare person I trust in business, sat across from me at the boardroom table, running through projections and market data with his usual dry precision. He reminded me of the numbers, the market risks, but also the reward. I felt good. Not arrogant, never that, but solid, anchored in the knowledge that every moving part of this company answered to me. It's a strange truth that the higher you climb, the more you crave simplicity. I'd found mine in Cherry Creek, a tree-lined neighborhood where our house looked like something out of an aspirational magazine spread. Every evening coming home was a ritual. Park, drop my bag in the mudroom, take a breath before opening the kitchen door. Elawan always seemed to know exactly when to start the playlist, how to light the room just right so it never felt staged. That night the table was set for 2 with real napkins, candles that smelled faintly of cedar, and my favorite bottle of Syrah breathing in the corner. There's something insidious about comfort when it's done too well. It makes you lower your guard. Elawan, my wife, my partner, the kind of woman who could light up a hotel lobby and have every investor eating out of her hand before dessert. She was the glue of every social event, the secret asset behind our most successful launches. People saw us and thought, picture-perfect Denver power couple building a future, one grand opening at a time. I let her in on every aspect of my work. She came to events, met my staff, stood at my side for press photos. It was more than trust. It was the sense that together we could weather anything. She made it easy to believe the world was exactly as it should be. After dinner, we lingered at the table. It was Elawan who steered the conversation from my day to the practicalities of our lives, life insurance, estate planning, succession. If something ever happened to you, who gets to sign for the hotels? What does the payout look like? She asked, casual but sharp. It struck me as a little odd how easily she navigated the legal jargon, how her questions came so naturally. Still, I chalked it up to caution. After all, every successful person I know has a plan for worst-case scenarios. She was just being practical. That's what I told myself. There's a particular discomfort in noticing the smallest fracture. Rhett, my younger brother, showed up unannounced with a 6-pack of local craft beer and a story about his latest failed side gig. He made himself at home in a way that bordered on overfamiliar, talking to Elawan about everything from football to market trends, ribbing me with that old rehearsed line, "You always land on your feet, don't you?" Knox Elawan was perfect, with him knowing exactly which buttons to push to keep Rhett from sulking. I felt for the first time in a long time like an outsider in my own living room. The evening wore on. After Rhett left, Graham texted me a question about a stray legal fee, something minor, a processing charge tied to a policy update or legal consult. I dismissed it, assuming accounting would sort it out. But when I replayed the conversation with Elowen in my head later, it stuck with me. She'd asked about signature authority. She'd wanted to know who could step in if I suddenly wasn't there to sign. It was all too specific, too well-timed. I lay awake, the hum of the city outside, wondering when my home had started to feel like another boardroom negotiation. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe not. But from that moment, I resolved to pay attention. The table had been set perfectly, the evening orchestrated for comfort, but I'd started to sense there was something beneath the surface, a different kind of deal being made. I just didn't know yet if I was the one signing away control. The days that followed took on a rhythm that was almost oppressive in its precision. Elowen became even more attentive, but it wasn't the spontaneous affection I remembered. Instead, it felt like surveillance masquerading as care. She'd ask in passing, but pointedly, about my upcoming trip to Santa Fe for 2 days, Charleston for a site visit, San Diego next month for the Industry Expo. What hotel are you staying at? Who's picking you up from the airport? Let me manage your calendar, make things easier for you. Her words made sense, but her insistence did not. She was logging every detail, every movement, like a project manager charting risk. One morning, I opened my phone to find a calendar invite for a policy review meeting with our life insurance provider, an appointment I never set at a time I was scheduled to be in a quarterly review. The confirmation was in my inbox, but the event had been created from a device registered to our home network. My assistant swore she hadn't booked it. I tried to brush it off as a glitch, but my skin prickled. I started to wonder if these were really accidents at all. That night, I broached the subject over dinner, careful to keep my tone light. Did you schedule a call with the insurance people for me? I asked. Elowen didn't even blink. You've been so stressed, I just want to make sure you're protected. If something happened, I want things to be smooth for you and for us. She smiled earnest and practiced and said, if the day comes when the pressure finally gets you, I want everything to be handled cleanly. It was the kind of line that sticks with you, a pre-written eulogy disguised as compassion. I should have let it go, but a kernel of unease had taken root. That weekend, as I was refilling the printer with paper in my office, I found a torn sheet in the waste tray. It was a partially printed beneficiary update form, my name already typed in, along with details only I would know. The handwriting in the margins was Elowen's, looping insure with check marks beside every section. The rest of the printout had been shredded, but the intent was clear. She was preparing to update policy documents, and more disturbingly, to do it without me present. The discovery sent a chill through me, a practical, businesslike approach to a world where I might no longer exist. Rhett showed up again just as I was puzzling over the form. He'd always been the king of bad timing, but tonight it was different. He found me in the kitchen, shot me a look, and said, "Don't make a big deal out of it, man. She just cares." The way he said it made my skin crawl. I realized then that Rhett already knew about the insurance appointment, maybe even more than I did. I caught his eye searching for a hint of guilt, but he looked away, muttering something about a fantasy football draft. It was a pattern I couldn't unsee, Elowen setting appointments, printing out legal forms in secret, Rhett conveniently in the loop for every administrative detail. I started keeping my own notes, recording every time she asked about my flights, every surprise visit from Rhett, every oddity in the mail or email. If there was a plan being set in motion, I was determined to chart its progress. The pressure mounted. I reviewed my calendar, tracing the digital footprints of every appointment. The insurance review had been scheduled from our living room, not the office. The torn beneficiary form had my signature space left blank, waiting. And Elowen over dinner grew ever more fluent in the language of loss and succession. If anything ever happens, I want you to know I'll handle it. You don't have to worry. But the more she talked about it, the more I worried. By the end of that week, my faith in the simple logic of love had been replaced by a darker certainty someone was scripting a story about my future that didn't include me in it. I stopped waiting for outright proof. Instead, I started looking for the trail they were leaving, one careful breadcrumb at a time. There was no confrontation, no explosive argument, only the silent, methodical tightening of a net I hadn't realized was there until it was almost closed. And so I watched and waited, knowing now that I could not afford a single careless step. Some truths you only let yourself uncover when you're alone in the dark. It was close to midnight in my office at Republic Plaza, The city below hushed by fresh snow, the world moving slow while my thoughts raced in feverish loops. I told myself I was being cautious, that I was just double-checking. But I knew the real reason I was scared. I was scared of what I'd find if I looked closely enough at my own life. My hand shook as I powered up the old family laptop, the one that sat mostly untouched in the den except for travel bookings and Alohan's recipe hunts. The faint hum of the hard drive made my heart jump. I opened the browser history, first expecting to see a few searches about Denver brunch spots or garden soil. What I found was a series of searches repeated always in clusters. Untraceable poisons. How to make a death look natural. How long does it take to get a life insurance payout after husband dies? Transfer ownership of LLC after owner's death. Symptoms of low-dose poisoning over time. The screen glowed with my own mortality spelled out in clinical search bars and advice forums. I scrolled each click, a test of my own resolve. There was a search about accumulation doses and another about safe window to call 911 for natural-looking death. It was so systematic, so calculated, I had to close my eyes for a second. I told myself maybe a neighbor used our Wi-Fi, maybe it was some kind of malware or spam. But the tabs were open to Alohan's regular login synced with our home Google account. She'd always said she didn't trust passwords on public Wi-Fi. I realized with sudden clarity just how much she'd learned to hide. Trying to shake it off, I went into our shared photo archive. That's when I noticed something else, a file